Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Shade and All House, and honestly, I feel like we're gonna end up spending more time in this freaking building than in any other location in this game, which is kind of terrifying. But between this video and the last video I was out gathering a ton of books, and then I realized, well, if I were to record myself doing that for every single book, it would take probably 6+ hours, if we're gonna be honest. So I used console commands and added the rest because I value my time to some extent. Not the craziest extent, but I value it at some point. So all of the books that we have not read are now in here, which is a very lot. There's so goddamn many, holy fuck. And then all the books that we have read are still in here, as per usual. And I think I also put something in here. No, that's just where I dumped all the trash out. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, okay, right. So, I should probably put the books in these two chests, huh? Keep them next to each other? Whatever. I don't know. But let's find out, what book do we want to start out with? You know what? Let's read a series today. A Dance and Fire, volume 1 through 7. Of course, they had to put a space between just that one. So it goes 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, cool. Hopefully this series isn't too long. Let's also, you know what, we're going to sit over here today as well. Our desk chair. You know why? Because why not? That's what I say. Alright, A Dance and Fire. How long is... Oh my god. Alright, maybe we won't read the entire series today? Holy fuck. Maybe we won't read the whole series today. Maybe we'll just end up reading like 2 of the books? That's the first one. They're all like fucking 30 pages. Yeah, I think we're gonna... Oh my god. We're gonna read 2... We'll read 2, and then 3. We'll be working on this series for a little while. God damn, that is fucking insane. Alright, well, it's gotta get done at some point, I suppose. A Dance and Fire, Chapter 1, by Wayan Yarth. This is like a full-ass story. These are all like, what, 25 pages each? 25 times... This is like 175 pages. Granted, these pages are a lot shorter. This is like a decent-sized short story. Probably like a 100 pages of a book. Ugh. Scene: the Imperial City, Cyrodiil. Date: 7th Frostfall, 3rd Era, 397. Actually, I want to check. What year are we even in? 397. We're in 435. So this was like 35, 38 years ago. Pretty cool. Alright. It seemed as if the palace had always housed the Atreus Building Commission, the company of clerks and estate agents who authored and notarized nearly every construction of any note in the Empire. It had stood for 250 years, since the reign of the Emperor Magnus, a plain-fronted and austere hall on a minor but respectable plaza in the Imperial City. Energetic and ambitious middle-class lads and ladies worked there, as well as complacent middle-aged ones like Decimus Scotti. No one could imagine a world without the Commission, least of all Scotti. To be accurate, he could not imagine a world without himself in the Commission. Lord Atreus is perfectly aware of your contributions, said the managing clerk, closing the shutter that demarcated Scotty's office behind him. But you know that things have been difficult. Yes, said Scotty stiffly. Lord Vainick's men have been giving us a lot of competition lately, and we must be more efficient if we are to survive. Unfortunately, that means releasing some of our historically best and presently underachieving senior clerks. I understand. Can't be helped. I'm glad that you understand, smiled the managing clerk, smiling thinly and withdrawing. Please, have your room cleared immediately. Scotty began the task of organizing all his work to pass on to his successor. It would probably be young Imbralius who would take most of it on, which was as it should be, he considered philosophically. The lad knew how to find business. Scotty wondered idly what the fellow would do with the contracts for the new statue of St. Alestia, for which the Temple of the One had applied. Probably invent a clerical error, blame it on his old predecessor Tekima Scotty, just Scotty, fuck it, he's Scotty now. It required an additional cost to rectify. I have correspondence for Scotty of the Atreus Building Commission. Scotty looked up. A fat-faced courier had entered his office and was thrusting forth a sealed scroll. He handed the boy a gold piece and opened it up. By the poor penmanship, atrocious spelling and grammar, and overall unprofessional tone, it was manifestly evident who the writer was. Loidus Juris, a fellow clerk some years before, who had left the commission after being accused of unethical business practices. Dear Scotty. Oh, Scotty. Dear Scotty, I imagine you always wondered what happened to me. In the last place you would have expected to find me is out in the woods. But that's exactly where I am. Haha. If you're smart and want to make a lot of extra gold for Lord Atreus and yourself, haha, you'll come down to Valenwood too. If you haven't or have been following the politics here lately, you may or may not know that there's been a war between the Bashmer and their neighbors elsewhere over the past 2 years. Things have only just calmed down, and there's a lot that needs to be rebuilt. Now I've got more business than I can handle, but I need someone with some clout, someone representing a respected agency to get the quill and the ink. That someone is you, my fiend. Come and meet. Give me that meat. Yeah, come and meet me at the Mither Pascos Tavern in Valenesti, Valenwood. I'll be here 2 weeks, and you won't be sorry. Oh, I just missaw that. Juris, P.S. Bring a wagon load of timber if you can. What do you have there, Scotty? Asked a voice. Scotty started. It was Imbralius, his damnably handsome face peeking through the shutters. Wow, what a compliment. Smiling in that way that melted the hearts of the stingiest of patrons and roughest of stonemasons. Scotty shoved the letter in his jacket pocket. Personal correspondence, he sniffed. I'll be cleared up here in just a moment. I don't want to hurry you, said Imbralius, grabbing a few sheets of blank contracts from Scotty's desk. I've just gone through a stack, and the junior scribe's hands are all cramping up now, so I thought you wouldn't miss a few. The lad vanished. Scotty retrieved the letter and read it again. He thought about his life, something he rarely did. It seemed a sea of gray with a black, insurmountable wall looming. There was only one narrow passage he could see in that wall. Quickly, before he had a moment to reconsider it, he grabbed a dozen of the blank contracts with the shimmering gold leaf, Atreus Building Commission by appointment of His Imperial Majesty, and hid them in the satchel, in the satchel with his personal effects. The next day he began his adventure with a giddy lack of hesitation. He arranged for a seat in a caravan bound for Valenwood. The single escorted conveyance to the southeast, leaving the imperial city that week. He had scarcely hours to pack, but he remembered to purchase a wagon load of timber. It would be extra gold to pay for a horse to pull that, frowned the convoy head. So I anticipated, smiled Scotty with his best Imbralius grin. 10 wagons in all set off that afternoon through the familiar Cyrodiilic countryside, past fields of wildflowers, gently rolling woodlands, friendly hamlets. The clop of the horses' hooves against the sound stone road reminded Scotty that the Atreus Building Commission constructed it. 5 of the 18 necessary contracts for its completion were drafted by his own hand. Very smart of you to bring that wood along, said a gray-whiskered Breton man next to him on his wagon. You must be in commerce. Of a sort, said Scotty, in a way he hoped was mysterious, before introducing himself. Tekima Scotty. Griff Malin, said the man. I'm a poet, actually a translator of old Bosmer literature. I was researching some newly discovered tracks of the Menoriad play bar 2 years ago when the war broke out and I had to leave. You are no doubt familiar with the Menoriad, if you're aware of the Green Pact. Scotty thought the man might be speaking perfect gibberish, but he nodded his head. Naturally, I don't pretend that the Menoriad is as renowned as the Iliadian, or as ancient as the Dancer Goal, but I think it has a remarkable significance to understanding the nature of the Merolithic Bosmer mind. The origin of the wood elf aversion to cutting their own wood or eating any plant material at all, yet paradoxically their willingness to import plant stuff from other cultures, I feel can be linked to a passage in the Minoriad. Malin shuffled through some of his papers, searching for the appropriate text. To Scotty's vast relief, the carriage soon stopped to camp for the night. They were high on a bluff over a gray stream, and before them was the great valley of Valenwood. Only the cry of seabirds declared the presence of the ocean to the bay to the west. Here the timber was so tall and wide, twisting around itself like an impossible knot, begun eons ago to be impenetrable. A few more modest trees, only 50 feet to the lowest branches, stood on the cliff at the edge of camp. The sight was so alien to Scotty that he found himself so anxious about the proposition of entering the wilderness that he could not imagine sleeping. Fortunately, Malin had supposed he had found another academic with a passion for riddles of ancient cultures. Long into the night, he recited Bosmer verses in the original and his own translation, sobbing and bellowing and whispering wherever appropriate. Gradually, Scotty began to feel drowsy, but a sudden crack of wood snapping made him sit up straight up. "What was that?" Malin smiled. "I like it too. Convocation in the malignity of the moonless speculum, a dance of fire. There are some enormous birds up in the trees moving around," whispered Scotty, pointing in the direction of the dark shapes above. He just mentioned a dance of fire, which is the name of the series. "I wouldn't worry about that," said Malin, irritated with his audience. "Now listen to how the poet characterizes Hermamord's invocation in the 18th stanza of the 4th book." What a fucking loser. "The dark shapes in the trees were some of them perched like birds, others slithered like snakes, and still others stood up straight like men." As Malin recited his verses, Scotty watched the figures softly leap from branch to branch, half gliding across impossible distances for anything without wings. They gathered in groups and then reorganized until they had spread to every tree around the camp. Suddenly, they plummeted from the heights. "Mara!" cried Scotty. "They're falling like rain!" "Probably seed pods," Malin shrugged, not turning around. "Some of the trees have remarkable..." The camp erupted into chaos. Fires burst out in the wagons. The horses wailed from mortal blows. Casks of wine, fresh water, and liquor gushed their contents to the ground. A nimble shadow dashed past Scotty and Malin, gathering sacks of grain and gold with impossible agility and grace. Scotty only had one glance at it, lit up by a sudden nearby burst of flame. It was a sleek creature with pointed ears, wide yellow eyes, mottled pied fur, and a tail like a whip. "Werewolf!" he whimpered, shrinking back. "Cathairat," groaned Malin. "Much worse. Khajiit cousins or some such thing, come to plunder." "Are you sure?" As quickly as they struck, the creatures retreated, diving off the bluff before the battle mage and knights. The caravan's escorts had fully opened their eyes. Malin and Scotty ran to the precipice and saw 100 feet below the tiny figures dashed out of the water, shake themselves, and disappear into the wood. "Werewolves aren't acrobats like that," said Malin. "They were definitely Cathairat. Bastard thieves. Thank Stendar they didn't realize the value of my notebooks. It wasn't a complete loss." That dude is just so unconcerned with life. All right. Well, I'm somewhat enjoying the story so far. And here we are, Volume 2, A Dance of Fire, Chapter 2. Okay. How long was this one? Goddamn, okay. A Dance of Fire, Chapter 2. It was a complete loss. The Cathairat had stolen or destroyed almost every item of value in the caravan in just a few minutes' time. Scotty's wagon load of wood he had hoped to trade with the Bosmer had been set on fire and then toppled off the bluff. His clothing and contracts were tattered and ground into the mud of dirt, mixed with spilt wine. All the pilgrims, merchants, and adventurers in the group moaned and wept as they gathered the remnants of their belongings by the rising sun of the dawn. "I best not tell anyone that I managed to hold on to my notes for my translation of the Minoriad play Bar," whispered the poet's Griff Malin. "They'd probably turn on me." Scotty politely declined the opportunity of telling Malin just how little value he himself placed on the man's property. Instead, he counted the coins in his purse. 34 gold pieces. God, man is broke, says the multimillionaire. Very little indeed for an entrepreneur beginning a new business. Hoi! Came a cry from the wood. A small party of Bosmer emerged from the thicket, clad in leather mail and bearing arms. Friend or foe? Neither, growled the convoy head. You must be the Cyrodiils, laughed the leader of the group, a tall, skeleton, thin youth with a sharp, vulpine face. We heard you were en route. Evidently, so did our enemies. I thought the war was over, muttered one of the caravan's now ruined merchants. The Bosmer laughed again. No active war, just a little border enterprise. You are going on to Valenwood. I'm not, the convoy head shook his head. As far as I'm concerned, my duty is done. No more horses, no more caravan, just a fat profit lost to me. The men and women crowded around the man, protesting, threatening, begging, but he refused to step foot in Valenwood. If these were the new times of peace, he said, he'd rather come back for the next war. Scotty tried a different route and approached the Bosmer. He spoke with an authoritative but friendly voice, the kind he used in negotiations with peevish carpenters. I don't suppose you consider escorting me to Valenwood. I'm a representative for an important imperial agency, the Atreus Building Commission, here to help repair and alleviate some of the problems the war with the Khajiit brought to your province. Patriotism, 20 gold pieces, and you must carry your own gear if you have any left, replied the Bosmer. Scotty reflected that negotiations with peevish carpenters rarely went his way either. 6 eager people had enough gold on them for payment. Among those without funds was the poet, who appealed to Scotty for assistance. I'm sorry, Griff. I only have 14 gold left over. Not even enough for a decent room when I get to Valenwood. I really would help you if I could, said Scotty, persuading himself that it was true. What a dick. The band of 6 and their Bosmer escorts began the descent down a rocky path along the bluff. Within an hour's time, they were deep in the jungles of Valenwood. A never-ending canopy of hues of browns and greens obscured the sky. A millennia's worth of fallen leaves formed a deep, wormy sea of putrefaction beneath their feet. Several miles were crossed wading through the slime. For several more, they took a labyrinthian path across fallen branches and low-hanging I think that's like boughs or something like that, of giant trees. God, that really makes me want to play a Valenwood game. I hope I'm alive by the time they finish making a game for all of the locations. I really do. It's gonna be a while. All the while, hour after hour, the inexhaustible Bosmer host moved so fast the Cyrodiil struggled to keep from being left behind. A red-faced little merchant with short legs took a bad step on a rotten branch and nearly fell. His fellow provincials had to help him up. The Bosmer paused only a moment, their eyes continually darting to the shadows in the trees above before moving on at their usual expeditious pace. What are they so nervous about? Wheezed the merchant irritably. More Cathai rot? Don't be ridiculous, laughed the Bosmer unconvincingly. Khajiit this far into Valenwood? In times of peace, they never dare. When the group passed high enough above the swamp that the smell was somewhat dissipated, Scotty felt a sudden pang of hunger. He was used to 4 meals a day in the Cyrodiilic custom. 4 meals? God damn! Hours of non-stop exertion without food was not part of his regimen as a comfortably paid clerk. He pondered, feeling somewhat delirious, how long they had been trotting through the jungle. 12 hours? 20? A week? Time was meaningless. Sunlight was only sporadic through the vegetation ceiling. Phosphorescent molds on the trees and in the muck below provided the only regular illumination. Is it at all possible for us to rest and eat? He hollered to his host up ahead. We're near to Philistini, came the echoing reply. Lots of food there. The path continued upward for several hours more across a clot of fallen logs, rising up to the first and then the second boughs of the tree line. God, I'm definitely saying that wrong. As they rounded a long corner, the travelers found themselves midway up a waterfall that fell 100 feet or more. No one had the energy to complain as they began pulling up the stacks of rock, agonizing foot by foot. The Bosmer escorts disappeared into the mist, but Scotty kept climbing until there was no more rock left. He wiped the sweat and river water from his eyes. Falastini spread across the horizon before him. Sprawling across both banks of the river stood the mighty Gratz Oak City, with groves and orchards of lesser trees crowding it like supplicants before their king. At a lesser scale, the tree that formed the moving city, really, what? would have been extraordinary, gnarled and twisted with a gorgeous crown of gold and green, dripping with vines and shining with sap. At a mile tall, holy shit, and half as wide. What? Dude, I gotta see that. Oh my god, that's incredible. It was the most magnificent thing Scotty had ever seen. If he had not been a starving man with the soul of a clerk, he would have sunk. "There you are," said the leader of the escorts. "Not too far a walk. You should be glad it's wintertide. In summertide, the city's on the far south end of the province." What? Dude, I need to have a Valenwood game while I'm still on this planet. Holy smokes. Scotty was lost as to how to proceed. The sight of the vertical metropolis where people moved about like ants disoriented all his sensibilities. You wouldn't know of an inn called... He paused for a moment and then pulled Juris's letter from his pocket. Something like Mother Pascos Tavern? Mother Pascost, the leader Bosmer laughed his familiar, contemptuous laugh. You won't want to stay there. Visitors always prefer the Asian Hall and the top bows. It's expensive, but very nice. I'm meeting someone at Mother Pascot's Tavern. If you've made up your mind to go, take a lift to Havel Slump and ask for directions there. Just don't get lost and fall asleep in the Western Cross. This apparently struck the youth's friends as a very witty jest, and so it was with their laughter echoing behind him that Scotty crossed the writhing root system to the base of Falastini. The ground was littered with leaves and refuse, and from moment to moment a glass or a bone would plummet from far above, so he walked with his neck crooked to have warning. An intricate network of platforms anchored to thick vines slipped up and down the slick trunk of the city with perfect grace, manned by operators with arms as thick as an ox's belly. Scotty approached the nearest fellow at one of the platforms, who was idly smoking from a glass pipe. "I was wondering if you might take me to Havel Slump." The Mer nodded, and within a few moments' time, Scotty was 200 feet in the air at a crook between two mighty branches. Curled webs of moss stretched unevenly across the fork, forming a sharing roof for several dozen small buildings. There were only a few souls in the alley, but around the bend ahead, he could hear the sound of music and people. Scotty tipped the Falastini platform ferryman a gold piece and asked for the location of Mother Pascot's Tavern. "Straight ahead of you, sir, but you won't find anyone there," the ferryman explained, pointing in the direction of the noise. "Morndas, everyone in Havel Slump has revelry." Scotty walked carefully along the narrow street. Though the ground felt as solid as the marble avenues of the Imperial City, there were slit cracks in the bark that exposed fatal drops into the river. Ooh, that would be so cool to play, but also so goddamn annoying, I'm sure. He took a moment to sit down to rest and get used to the view from the heights. It was a beautiful day for certain, but it took Scotty only a few minutes of contemplation to rise up in alarm. A jolly little raft anchored downstream below him had distantly moved several inches while he watched it, but it hadn't moved at all. Wait, what? He had. Together with everything around him. It was no metaphor. The city of Falastini walked, and considering its size, it moved quickly. Scotty rose to his feet and into a cloud of smoke that drifted out from around the bend. It was the most delicious roast he had ever smelled. The clerk forgot his fear and ran. The revelry, as the ferrymen had termed it, took place on an enormous platform tied to the tree, wide enough to be a plaza in any other city. A fantastic assortment of the most amazing people Scotty had ever seen were jammed shoulder to shoulder together, many eating, many more drinking, and some dancing to a lutist and a singer perched on an offshoot above the crowd. They were largely Bosmer, true natives clad in colorful leather and bones, with a close minority of orcs. Whirling through the throng, dancing and bellowing at one another were hideous ape people. A few heads bobbing over the tops of the crowd belonged not, as Scotty first assumed, to very tall people, but to a family of centaurs. Motherfucker, what? Care for some mutton? Queried a wizened old Mer who roasted an enormous beast on some red-hot rocks. Scotty quickly paid him a gold piece and devoured the leg he was given, and then another gold piece and another leg. The fellow chuckled when Scotty began choking on a piece of gristle, and handed him a mug of a frothing white drink. He drank it and felt a quiver run through his body as if he were being tickled. "What is that?" Scotty asked. "Jaga." "Yaga? Jaga. I don't know. Yaga. Yaga. Fermented pig's milk. I can let you have a flagon of it and a bit more mutton for another gold." Scotty agreed, paid, gobbled down the meat, and took the flagon with him as he slipped into the crowd. His co-worker, Lloydus Juris, the man who had told him to come to Valenwood, was nowhere to be seen. When the flagon was a quarter empty, Scotty stopped looking for Juris. When it was half empty, he was dancing with the group, oblivious to the broken planks and gaps in the fencework. At 3/4 empty, he was trading jokes with a group of creatures whose language was completely alien to him. By the time the flagon was completely drained, he was asleep, snoring while the revelry continued on all around his supine body. The next morning, still asleep, Scotty had the sensation of someone kissing him. He made a face to return the favor, but a pain like fire spread through his chest and forced him to open his eyes. There was an insect the size of a large calf sitting on him, crushing him, its spiky legs holding him down, while a central spiral-bladed vortex of a mouth tore through his shirt. He screamed and thrashed, but the beast was too strong. It had found its meal, and it was going to finish it. "It's over," thought Scotty wildly. I should have never left home. I could have stayed in the city, and perhaps found work with Lord Vinek. I could have begun again as a junior clerk and worked my way back up. Suddenly the mouth released itself. The creature shivered once, expelled a burst of yellow bile, and died. "Get one!" cried a voice, not too distantly. For a moment Scotty lay still. His head throbbed and his chest burned. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a movement. Another of the horrible monsters was scurried towards him. He scrambled, tried to push himself free, and before he could come out, there was a sound of a bow cracking and an arrow pierced the second insect. "Good shot!" cried another voice. "Get the first one again. I just saw it move a little." This time, Scotty felt the impact of the bolt hit the carcass. He cried out, but he could hear how muffled his voice was by the beetle's body. Cautiously, he tried sliding a foot out and rolling under, but the movement apparently had the effect of convincing the archers that the creature still lived. A volley of arrows was launched forth. God, that's so unfortunate. Now the beast was sufficiently perforated so pools of its blood, and likely the blood of its victims, began to seep out onto Scotty's body. When Scotty was a lad, before he grew too sophisticated for such sports, he had often gone to the Imperial Arena for the competitions of war. What do you mean too sophisticated for that, huh? He recalled a great veteran of the fights when asked, telling him his secret. "Whenever I'm in doubt of what to do, and I have a shield, I stay behind it." Scotty followed that advice. After an hour, when he no longer heard arrows being fired, he threw aside the remains of the bug and leapt as quickly as he could to a stand. Good thing it didn't hit his foot, huh? It was not a moment too soon. A gang of 8 archers had their bows pointed his direction, ready to fire. When they saw him, they laughed. "Didn't anyone ever tell you not to sleep in the Western Cross? How are we going to exterminate all the horvars if you drunks keep feeding them?" Scotty shook his head and walked back along the platform, round the bend to the Havel slump. He was bloodied and torn and tired, and he had far too much fermented pig's milk. What a fucking drink. All he wanted was a proper place to lie down. He stepped into Mother Pascot's tavern, a dank place, wet with sap, smelling of mildew. "My name is Decimus Scotty," he said. "I was hoping you have someone named Jerris staying here." "Decimus Scotty," pondered the fleshy proprietress. Mother Pascot herself. "I've heard that name. Oh, you must be the fellow he left the note for. Let me go see if I can find it." The story is ramping up. Kinda, but not really. it's a decent story so far. It is kind of nice reading like an actual story. Usually it's just like a research page. Usually it's just like research papers and whatnot that we read, and like some like short stories, or like just a lot of stories that are not even like stories. A lot of the stuff that we've been reading have just been like information on the world. So it is kind of cool to actually read a story. All right, let us put these books away. Well, yeah, we'll put away the first 2 volumes. We'll hold on to the other ones. I mean, it's not that much. It's not really like it's taking up that much room, huh? But yeah, so that's gonna do it for this video. In the next video, we're not gonna be going to the Shivering Isles quite yet. In the upcoming videos, the only other thing that I really want to do is just kind of explore. Oh, no. We need to explore the sewers. We never explored the sewers. I'm actually going to hold off on going into the sewers just for now. I think I'm going to end up going city by city, throwing on the cowl of the Gray Fox, and breaking into absolutely every house and stealing a lot of stuff. Anything of value. Just see if there's any kind of like unique stuff in any of these houses and whatnot. So we'll have, it's going to be quite a lot of videos. It's going to be one for pretty much each city, obviously not Kvatch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 videos at least. Maybe an extra 1 or 2 for the Imperial City. Then at some point as we're going along all of those, I'll also just go explore all of the sewers. Maybe I'll do that like right before I go stealing from the Imperial City. But yeah, so that's what I have planned for the upcoming few videos. Obviously, I'll bounce back and forth between that and reading some more of these books. But then, yeah, once we do that, obviously that'll probably be another like fucking 20 videos or whatever. But once we finish that, then we'll finally go into the Shivering Isles. But until that next video, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I hope to see you then. Goodbye. I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.